What about my love? Wasn't it enough? Just let me know so
I thought of this when I saw this story. First person I thought, of course, would be you. Now, last week we talked about DeAndre Hopkins being released from the Cardinals, and he had a list of quarterbacks he wanted to work with, or that he would like to work with, and he had a bunch of teams that he was willing to talk to. Now, it seems like some of those teams are off the radar. One of those teams being the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this week at camp, Coach Doug Pederson was asked about DeAndre Hopkins, and Coach had this to say about him. He said, it's hard to add someone of his caliber to this talented room, to the talent that's in this room already. You consider everything, but at the same time, it's not a reality for us to bring someone like that in. Now, Dante, let me ask you, do you agree with Coach's comments?
I do. You got to realize what you got there. And I think a lot of teams in the NFL, what they're doing is they're not building that teamwork or that chemistry between each other because they're always bringing anomalies in, right? You're not going to have the thing about, like, for example, that worked for the Eagles is that AJ and Jalen were friends outside of that for many, many years. So that's one relationship that they've built over a while, even though they might not have played together, but they've already had that trust in each other. Would you bring a DeAndre Hopkins in to the Jaguars while you're right now trying to figure out who your true number one guy is going to be down the road? Because I think it's, to me, when I look at OTAs and the interviews, because you guys know I watch all the Jaguar stuff. I just don't talk about it all the time, but I follow everything Jaguars all the time. Zay Jones and Trevor Lawrence are really good friends, and they always work out the most out of everybody on the team. Like, that's the deal. Like, I think Zay Jones is the future of this team. I think Christian Kirk is just there to help us get to another level of prominence. You have Calvin Ridley, who they brought in, who is already this DeAndre Hopkins type of experiment when you really think about it, right? And a guy that's a veteran, a guy that knows the ropes. The only difference between him and DeAndre is DeAndre's most controversial thing was, well, they both got suspended, right? But they both got suspended for different things. So I guess their situations are a little bit more similar than we're really giving it credit for. But you have Jamal Agnew, who's no slouch. You got Tim Jones, who I believe was injured last year. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just drafted Parker Washington, who I think is a beast in his own right. I might not have liked the pick because we have so many damn receivers, but I mean, if you're trying to stay young and help those guys build their relationship together. So I totally agree with his comments. Like, yes, he's a talented guy, but is the juice worth the squeeze and what he would expect to be on the team for? It might not be us. So I agree with Dougie P. You let him go somewhere else because he just doesn't fit what we got going on. And we got Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Calvin Ridley, Jamal Agnew, Tim Jones. That's 5 guys that have already filled out our depth chart right there. I mean, it just is what it is.
Let me give you a follow-up. If the Jaguars had not acquired Calvin Ridley, do you think the situation would be different and they would be interested in DeAndre Hopkins?
I'd be like, go get him.
I kind of look at Doug's comments as, like you said, we don't know who the number one guy is. We don't want to damage anyone's confidence. We don't want that in a locker room of what if. So he's just flattening it out right now because he knows he needs to establish his one. And he doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Well, here's the thing too, Vic. Who is the veteran guy of that wide receiving core right now? Calvin Ridley.
Okay, well,
Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley.
Veteran because he wasn't on the team.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, the
guy throughout the league in general. Yes, it would be.
And a guy that was arguably a top 5 receiver at one point in his career, which none of these guys ever were. So you kind of look at once they say Calvin Ridley got on the team, Christian Kirk and Zay Jones' eyes went like, what, for real? Oh man, we're gonna be pulling a lot from him. Now that we have that, we really don't need that again. So, I mean, I love DeAndre Hopkins. I wouldn't be mad if we signed him. I'd be hype. But Yeah, I get what he's saying. You got two veteran guys there that are going to be serving the same job, and they're already kind of iffy on what they're going to be doing this year because they're so far in their careers. So,
listen, I wish you're receiving for nothing but health this year, because I know if there is an injury, season-ending injury for anyone, the first thing people are going to say is, "Why didn't we get D-Hop? Why did the coach turn him down? He was available. We could have done it." But Slora,
we'll trade for Keenan Allen.
Is he reliable enough? Is he reliable enough?
I'd rather have Keenan Allen than Calvin Ridley.
I don't know. Slora, let me ask you. You've heard Coach Pederson's comments. Do you agree with what he said?
Yeah, I can agree. I mean, it's hard to turn down top 5, receiver in the NFL. It's hard to turn down that type of talent. But I mean, even then, even before Calvin Ridley, I almost said Calvin Johnson, even before Calvin Ridley, that receiver room was pretty stacked. I mean, you've had another weapon in Calvin Ridley. You're hoping it can bank off, not playing a year of football. We saw what that looked like with Deshaun Watson which I get, quarterback, receiver, 2 different positions. But even still, we saw kind of it has an effect. He's not going to jump out of the gate like immediately. But that receiver room is already too stacked enough to add talent. And again, it's the same thing how what you and I said to Eagle fans about, adding D-Hop. You've already got A.J. Brown and Smitty. Now you're taking snaps away from somebody. Now you're potentially starting drama in locker rooms. I mean, are D-Hop and Ridley going to clash heads? Are D-Hop and Kirk going to clash heads? So you got to notice about all that. D-Hop needs to go to a team that doesn't have like a true number 1 and a true number 2. And, you've got Jacksonville, you've got young enough of receivers to determine who your number 1 is. You don't need to panic and be like, none of these guys can be the number 1. We need to immediately sign them. Some of those younger guys like Kirk and Zay Jones, they got potential to be your 1 and 2. You could even argue they didn't really need Calvin. So, yeah, I can agree, but can also agree with what you said, Vic. You better hope that receiver core stays healthy, because there's somebody going to be like, we had D-Hop on the table for us. What happened?
Hayden, let me ask you. There aren't many top 5 wide receivers out available. Do you agree with Coach Pederson's comments with, hey, the room that we have is filled. We're good with what we got. Do you agree with those comments by Coach Doug Pederson?
I do. I actually do, because when I look at whether or not a team should bring in a leader, like a player, I look at everything. I look at the situation. I look at what he can bring to the team. I look at the negatives that could happen if he comes on this team. For example, you don't want an AB to Vegas type of thing where all it is bad news, negative stuff. I'm not saying DeAndre Hopkins would do that. I'm just saying you got to weigh in. Will this help the team out this year and long year, or will this just be a bad situation that we're going to regret and we're just going to remove halfway through the season or at the end of the season? So it's evaluating your room. And if Doug Pederson feels like he is confident in the room that he has, he could just ride with it, because you got Calvin Ridley, which we know what he can do when he's healthy. He can be he could be a top 10 receiver when he's healthy and playing at the level that he was before the suspension. And then you got Christian Kirk, who had a breakout year last year that no one really expected. And then you got Zay Jones, I almost said Zay Flowers. You got Zay Jones, who's looking to be on the up in Jacksonville as well. So you got 3 players who are going to fit your scheme more, and if you bring in D-Hop, that could ruin the development of Zay Jones. That could ruin the thing that Jacksonville has. So I agree.
Gentlemen. I'm shocked, honestly, especially with the position that Jacksonville's in. A young up-and-coming quarterback.
Yep.
You have 3 receivers who are not proving the side of Christian Kirk right now on the team. You're putting a lot of money into Christian Kirk. I'm the GM, I'm looking around to see who would be willing to take up Kirk's contract. I'm gonna bring D Hop, and we're gonna set up this team up right. I'm giving Trevor Lawrence every opportunity possible, and I'm trying to give him the best weapons I can. We're trying to pay for this new stadium, baby. We need some money. We need to win some games, baby. We need to win some games.
Nick, that's when you just tank for Marvin Harrison Jr., bro.
Nah, but wait though. There's other holes that we need to fix. I know everybody talk about Buda Baker. Let's go get Buda Baker. That's a better upgrade for us than their wide receiver right now.
Bro, you gonna break the hearts of Eagles Twitter if y'all get Buda Baker.
But imagine
Eagles Twitter is gonna be rooting for her. They're gonna be rooting for Doug Peterson.
But if you make a good trade and acquire a decent pick because of one of the receivers or whatever you do to move on, it can help out your defense now or in the long run. Listen, I'll say this, and even with the Eagles, how you mentioned before, sir, no team is too good for a top wide receiver. If the Eagles can make it fit within the cap and make him move, listen, Quez Watkins, it was great to have you so long.
That's what I'm saying, bro. It was nice knowing you.
You know what I mean? I don't know why everyone's looking at a top wide receiver like, nah, we're good. Listen, I'm going to explore all my options first. I'm going to see if it's possible to make a move to make my team better in order to acquire that player. If all that fails, then I'll do what Doug Peterson says. Listen, the guys we have in the room right now, they're hungry, they're here to work, and they're going to play well. That's when I say that. But until I exhaust those options, I ain't saying a damn thing.